The first thing I like to do before I start any project is to get organized and to gather all my supplies. So the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is put your pattern, and this pattern especially is about 19 pages. Put your pattern in some sheet protectors and in a small binder. This binder's, I think it's either 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, 3-ring binder. And I always choose sheet protectors that are not the cheapest, because I found that the very cheap ones, they're hard to read and they tear easily. So get the medium weight ones. They're a little bit better, and you can use them over and over again in different projects. So I put the papers, and there's usually 2 papers if it's single-sided, in one sheet, so you can just flip through, and I make all kinds of notes on mine. And let me go through the pattern right now. There are 2 sizes in this pattern, and the fabric requirements show you the 2 sizes, the throw size and the double size. In this demonstration, I'm going to be making the double size, but I'm not going to put the borders on. I don't want my quilt as big as that, so I'm going to leave it off, but I will show you how to put the borders on yours. Then the next part is the throw quilt, and it's the cutting instructions. So you have it on page 1, and the cutting instructions for the double quilt are on page 2. We're not going to look at this so much in this class because I've prepared something else for you to look at, but we will be referring back to these occasionally. And here are the 2 different blocks we're going to make. There's only 2 blocks in this quilt. This is the sun block. We'll make that one first, and this is the river block. And we're going to break these down into smaller units to make it easy to piece. Then the next page, we start with the instructions, and we start with the throw size with the sun block. And this is the throw size for the river block. And it has really good pictures and diagrams for you to look at. And then here's the throw block, the throw size, river block, continued here. And then we start again with the double size, sun block and river block. And here are the borders. And then this is how you'll piece the throw with your 2 different blocks. And this is how you piece the double. And this is what it looks like, the throw looks like with the borders. And this, on page 14, are some swatch charts, and we'll talk about that later. And on 15 and 17, there are these little pieces of paper you can use as you're cutting to keep track of your strips and your pieces that you need. But we won't be using these in this class, but they're here if you need them. As you go through the pattern, you can see, even though it's 19 pages, if you're making one size quilt, about half of the information you don't even need because it's for the other size quilt. But you'll have both of them if you, in the future, want to make a different size quilt. The next thing you can put in your binder and in sheet protectors is your supply list and your cutting notes that you downloaded. The first page is the supply list. So let's go over the supplies right now. You have the pattern, and you'll need a rotary cutter with a fresh blade, and a 6.5 inch by 12.5 ruler are larger, and you can also get a smaller one. I'd like to use a variety of rulers. This one is 13 inches long, but it's 4 inches wide. Sometimes it's easier to handle the narrower ruler. This is great for cutting larger pieces. This is 6 inches by 12 inches. And one of my favorite rulers is this. It's 10 inches by 2.5 inches. And especially when you're doing strip piecing, it's really easy to handle. It's very small. So choose whatever ruler you're familiar with. You don't have to go out and buy a lot of different rulers. Try what you have, and most likely it'll work just fine for you. The cutting mat I use is 24 inches by 18 inches. This is what I use for almost all of my cutting. And choose a good quality thread. A lot of people like the 50 weight thread. I use a 40 weight thread in my machine because I use a high-speed machine, and the 50 weight thread tends to break on me kind of often. And a sewing machine with a 1/4-inch foot. This is really important because accuracy is very important with this quilt and many other quilts too. Small scissors at the sewing machine, an iron and a pressing surface, and you'll need 6 Ziploc or some other kind of plastic bag. These are something else I use over and over again. They're just the Zip Top, the store brand, and I believe they're the gallon size. And we're going to number these SB1, SB2, that's for sunblock 1 and 2, RB1, RB2, and RB3, that's for river block 1, 2, and 3. And finally, B1 is going to be for your borders and your binding. So you'll need 6 of these bags for what we're going to do. And your small binder and 14 sheet protectors if you're going to put your pattern and all the supply list and cutting notes in the binder. I like to leave all of these together, so when I finish a project, I generally take all the papers out of the binder and I put them in a file folder and file them away. That way the binder and the sheet protectors are reusable for the next project. So I wanted to go over now the cutting notes that you downloaded and printed. And they're divided into the throw size and the double size as well. The throw size is in the front and the double size is in the back. And what we're going to do, I listed first the different fabrics. So this is the first page 2 of 11 is the throw size dark fabric number 1. And these are the cuts we're going to make with the dark fabric number 1. On the side here you'll see a swatch chart for that fabric. And we'll talk about swatches in the next video when we talk about fabric. What you're going to do is take this one dark fabric and you're going to make all of these cuts from that fabric. And in this column here it tells you which bag to put them in. For example, you'll cut 1 strip, and these are width of fabric strips if it doesn't say, 2.5 inches wide, and then you're going to put that strip into bag number 1. Then the second one, you'll cut 1 strip 2.5 inches wide, then you'll subcut it into a smaller piece and put that smaller piece into bag RB1. And you continue like that for the rest of this chart. So this chart goes with this dark fabric. If you go to the next chart, it's dark fabric number 2. And you'll do the same thing with fabric number 2. And over here is dark number 3. And here's the medium fabric and the background fabric. And these are the swatches for the border and binding. So these first 3 pages are for the throw size and their cutting instructions for the throw size. Then the next page you have double size and it's repeated the same way. The chart and the swatch, the cutting notes and the swatch chart for dark fabric 1, dark fabric 2, dark fabric 3, medium fabric, background fabric, border and binding. So those are the first few pages. And we'll follow these when we're cutting depending on which size quilt you use. And don't worry, if you're confused now, that's okay. I'm just giving you an overview. And then this next section will tell you what's in each bag. And we'll go through these sections as we're piecing, so don't worry about those right now. It's just a little bit different because we're setting up our pieces, our little segments that Chris calls strata. We make different strata and piece those together. We're putting those in the bag, so that's why I made the little cutting notes for you. And as we go, you'll see how it falls into place. So now is the point where you organize your papers, put them in a binder if you like, or organize them somehow because you're going to be flipping through and referring to them quite often as we go through this process. So this just makes it easy and keeps the pages all nice and clean for you. Organize your papers into your binder, gather all your supplies, and now next we'll talk about fabric.